Dammit, Moffat.
A Doctor Who review of The Cold War by Mark Gatiss.
This episode is very obviously a cost-cutting measure by the Doctor Who production staff. It's very much like, okay, we're going to spend money everywhere else this season, so we're going to construct like 3 sets, and that's going to be this whole episode, which is fine, and it's very much a throwback to old Doctor Who, much like Dalek was, in terms of they're in a base under siege, which is fine, but it also suffers classic Who pacing within the span of 41 minutes.
It just dragged so much. I kept checking the time, like, how much of this episode is left? And especially coming into the episode, I was so confused. First of all, we're with Russians. And I mean, Gold Star not going with the stereotypical Russian accent, but I had to keep reminding myself they were Russians. And I feel like that's a bit of an issue. I mean, Clara's British, and, you know, they...
Yeah, like, none of them were really even trying to even do, like, a slight Russian accent, like, at all. Like, and I guess it's sort of like a Kevin Costner and Robin Hood thing of, like, well, if you can't do it, don't try it. But, like...
I mean, it was good not to go for the stereotypical, I guess, but it just kind of made it confusing for the viewer. I guess I am coming at this from an American standpoint, and what we learn about the Cold War is it's very... very much polarized and all that because we were so involved with it. I don't quite know, honestly, what it was like for Britain. I'm pretty ignorant about that, but it was just weird.
Woo. It's just, you know, okay, so this episode, it starts off, and I'm like, oh my god, David Warner, who played, like, the old man, and he's in,
That's
like...
a nice character. I liked it.
He's done, like, bit parts in, like, everything. Like, seriously, just look up his IMDb. He's been in everything. Especially a lot of sci-fi and a lot of fantasy television. Cool. You know, he's I'm just like, oh, you're so old. And then Ermagerd, Ice Warrior. Ice Warrior is as many of you know or probably don't know, a classic Who villain from the 2nd and 3rd Doctor. And you know, they look cool now. They look great.
No.
Well, okay, well, the outside looks great. They looked cool until CGI happened.
That was rough.
All right, we'll get to that.
Well, that's later.
So the TARDIS goes away, and it's like, no,
TARDIS, come back! I mean, I think it was so they couldn't flee or something.
But, like, to be fair, they do that in a lot of Doctor Who episodes.
They do, but it was really confusing. I'm like, I guess this translation matrix is still working. It's a nitpicky thing, but it's still a thing.
It's like, you know... Go.
Oh, also, the fact they introduced themselves as time travelers, that's really significant. Like, they don't do that often. But I guess, you know, because it's such a disaster scenario, it's kind of like Voyage of the Damned in that, except that was a more futuristic setting, so maybe it wasn't as big a deal, where it's kind of like, okay, I'm the Doctor, I'm doing this, let's just get stuff done. It was kind of that kind of mindset, which works. They didn't have to kind of put on this little play for the Russians.
Yeah,
but
they weren't trying, well, like, what else are you going to say? But, like, okay, so let's just get this out of the way. There's an Ice Warrior, and it's about the Cold War. Do you get it? Do you get it? You get it because cold is like ice. Do you get it? Like, okay.
This is so subtle. I'm the first one to admit I love bad puns. I am the biggest fan of bad puns. But this wasn't even a good bad pun.
It's just like, and, okay, so, like, seriously, it's really difficult to talk about what happened in this episode because, like, once again, because of, like, the lack of a budget or whatever, like, not a whole lot does. But, like, I'm just going to throw it out there right now. When the Ice Warrior... Okay, first, they showed the Ice Warriors, like, it came out of its protective shell case, which is cool.
Dishonorable, too, which was an interesting twist.
But, like, when you saw its eyes, I'm like, okay, that's fine. We're going to, like, you know, it's that whole, like, don't show anything, and it makes it scarier. But then, like, they start showing its face more, and I'm like, oh, this looks real bad. And then when he takes, like, when he's in the suit, and then he takes the helmet off, I'm like, this looks real bad.
It's really squishy.
Like, he looked like a very early, like, 2000 or even mid-2000s, like, CGI character.
Be generous.
He really
it wasn't that bad. It just...
He really reminded me of something, like, out of a show, like, okay, not as bad as Beast Wars. Reminds me a little more of, like, Ace Lightning in terms of, like, CGI. It just looks so fake. And, like, I understand this is, like, Doctor Who where, like, fake effects are, like, a thing. And, like, you know, it's never going to look great. But they've had good effects before.
I'd almost prefer that they went the way they kind of did with the Silurians and did the makeup.
Yeah.
Because that looked really cool. And I guess they wanted to try something different.
The problem is that I think if they had done makeup, it would have looked just like the Silurians.
Would it? Yeah, that's true. That's true. The way that their faces kind of were, they were very similar.
They're all scaly.
Yeah, I mean...
With his Lego hands.
I just feel so apathetic towards this episode. It makes me really sad.
Like, I don't mind a standalone episode. In fact, I applaud them for the fact that they had a standalone episode because
I think it filled its purpose very well.
And it wasn't like, I'm sure like something about it will come back. I'm sure their giant ice warrior spaceship will come back
towards the end.
But it's like you don't need to know about any crazy overarching anything. It's just there.
So you could just show this to somebody and they'd get a taste of Doctor Who. I don't think this was particularly the best
it's not.
Example of what Doctor Who was. It's kind of what you think of Doctor Who when you try to explain to people. It's like they go and they're aliens and things happen and time.
So, okay, also, David Warner as the old man, could you have sung Hungry Like the Wolf any creepier? Like, whoa, bro.
That was a little creepy.
Although Clara was laying on the sass.
Clara was so sassy. I appreciated it. She wasn't in it enough for me. I don't know. I kind of really wanted her to kind of be her moment to shine, and it kind of was. You got that sense.
She's just kind of there.
She was just kind of there. Last episode, she really got some time to shine. This one, she was just there, and she kind of interacted with the Doctor a bit, and their dynamic. I don't know. I wasn't feeling the chemistry between them this episode, one way or another. Like they kind of had that hug at the end, and I really wanted to be like, "Wow, we made it through this," but I didn't really feel anything. I mean, everybody might interpret that differently.
So I guess the one thing that kind of interested me, and I'm glad they didn't like feel the need to hammer it home or anything, but like this Ice Warrior thought he was the last of the Ice Warriors.
Yeah, I really
and the
like
Doctor,
that motif.
they were trying to like it wasn't
Parallels.
like they were trying to make a parallel, and
but I think it fell short.
Yeah, like
as a parallel.
The problem is it's a very fine line to walk with, like without being too over dramatic.
Definitely.
Where it's like they could have been like, "You are the last of the Ice Warriors. Were you aware I'm the last of the time?" Like it wasn't like
It reminded me a little bit in that sense of A Town Called Mercy.
Yeah.
But I think A Town Called Mercy, I prefer that episode. I think it did it better. I like the references the Doctor had to mercy. The Doctor was constantly praying for this kind of mercy, which is interesting because in A Town Called Mercy, he's like, I've shown so much mercy throughout all my life. So I think this was kind of the Doctor's good karma. You showed mercy, you got some mercy, which was nice.
But in some other... and then there's the uber stereotypical million times used shot of like the... Like, looks back, alien grabs the person, goes up, and is like, dirt, where to go?
That was so funny. It was like out of an alien horror movie because they had the whole enclosed space, alien on the loose, like, base. It was kind of like Hounds of Baskerville. Sherlock.
Yeah, well, which is understandable.
It's similar kind of like, yeah, of course, and they're both kind of similar kind of circumstances. We're kind of trapped, and then there's this monster.
Dude, though, this was just, this episode was rough.
I really was trying to, the problem is I was so apathetic towards it, and it was dragging so long. I was trying to, because usually when it comes to Doctor Who in my head, I can kind of make some parallels and interesting comparisons of how this episode is speaking to different things.
Not here.
I was really trying, because I thought it was interesting that these Ice Wars are from Mars, which is the red planet, and this is the Cold War, and we're dealing with the Russians, red, communism and all that.
But it's okay because they're not real Russians because they don't talk like Russians at all.
I mean, I feel like they could have done so much more.
So let's go once again the really nitpicky.
Yes.
And look, I'm gonna preface this by saying I understand that by a storytelling perspective, if they took the time to explain all this bullshit, it would bog down the episode.
Oh, definitely. They did what they had to do.
But the TARDIS is supposed to translate shit, and like. The TARDIS is on the other side of the planet. It's
literally at the South Pole. It's like not even close.
Like, I guess you could really bullshit away like, oh, well, the Doctor has some residual energy and that makes it work. Like, it really is a nitpicky thing.
Like, once you install the program, it's kind of there and working, at least for a bit. Like,
I mean, once again, I'm sure there's like a technical something or other you could say.
There's probably a technical loophole that we just haven't heard of. Or it could just be a plot hole. I mean, it happens.
It's just... And I can't get over that CGI of the face. It's so cheesy.
Think about it. I was more disappointed in the... I mean, it was a standalone, but I feel like I was trying to compare it to Dalek in my mind because that one scene with Clara and Scald...
I expected her to, like, touch it and it
the residual time energy, all of a sudden, it's reinvigorated, but no.
I'm sure there's already a gift set online
that
someone's made of that.
I'm sure. I haven't been on Tumblr yet because I was waiting to watch it, but... I mean, I thought Clara's the initiative she showed was really good, but she was praised a lot for doing exactly what the Doctor said. And that's not her character from what I've seen so far.
Isn't she supposed to be like, quote unquote, like smarter than the Doctor?
Yeah, taking the initiative. And I think that there were some moments this episode where it's like they're trying to talk to Skullbag and he's like, or I'm saying his name wrong, whatever. And And they're all like, hey, you know, saying all these things to him, it's going really badly. But then Clara starts talking to him, and he listens,
fine.
and it's good. And it was like they could have done that more to kind of give Clara a little moment to shine in the standalone, because because it's a standalone doesn't mean there can't be any character development.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be as obvious, but this would have been a good opportunity, and
It's just, so what would you give this episode as, like, a rating? I would give it, like, a 3 out of 5.
Yeah, 3 out of 5, like a C. Like, it was...
It tried.
It tried. It did. It fulfilled its goal as a standalone.
I give it points for being a standalone episode and not feeling the need to be like Doctor Who.
Yeah, it was. You know, it is nice to kind of. It wasn't that complicated, but with the plot, like, I'm trying to think what the plot was.
There was a monster on a ship and it thought it was going to die.
Yeah.
Rough life.
I mean, it was all right. And then the ending was just, what did you say? Deus Ex?
Deus Ex spaceship.
They did set it up a little bit with the distress signal, so that was good, but...
It still felt a little like, okay, thanks for coming at the exact... And I was just saying, storytelling convention, I get it.
Yeah, but it needs to happen. And it was nice for a change to not have the Doctor just Sonic his way out of it. Again.
Exactly. So
that was nice.
So that's good. That's good.
So it's like, I want to give it points for doing things it did. I just don't think it did them. It was mediocre. It was a good episode.
Yeah.
It did its job. I'm not a huge fan. There may be people who really enjoyed it.
I'm sure there's always someone who enjoys it.
Always. I'm sure there are people who hated it, but I mean, I'm just kind of, it was a thing. It was a thing.
And to answer someone's question last week, what was the question? It was...
I was asking if Doctor Who was as big in the States here, or we're just hardcore fans all.
Doctor Who has never been more popular in America than it is right now.
Like, this shirt I think I got it from, like, my mom, and it's like you can get them, like, FYE or
Dude, like,
Hot
they're selling...
Topic, like, random stores.
They're selling stuff, like, to put this in perspective for any of you who are UK watchers, like, all these stores are, like, they're, like, they're, like, regular department stores, basically.
Yeah, it's become very marketable here.
They have Doctor Who stuff in our school store downstairs.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's weird to see it. I mean, these aren't my favorite kinds of things. Still, the best stuff is, like, from the internet and stuff.
Yeah, but it's the thing is that, like...
It's here.
It's the thing about Doctor Who in America, and there are many more extensive articles about this online. I'm not going to talk about it for very long, but it was always, like, back in, like, the 70s and 80s, like, it aired on PBS, and it was a very cult thing. Yeah. And then for a long time, it still was a cult thing. And then when it came back, like, it aired on Sci-Fi Channel, and it was still a cult thing, and although people started to like it because of David Tennant. And then, basically, once BBC America got the show... That was when they started to make the push. They pushed it, and it's just getting more and more popular.
Stephen Moffat's writing was definitely a part of it. I mean, some of our friends were here as we were watching the episode, and they're like, is this Doctor Who? Because they started watching it with, 9 and 10 and all that, and it looks completely different now. They're like, it actually looks like a TV show.
It looks like a real show.
And it's because to an American audience, it's kind of changed, and it looks more like our shows, and it looks more, I don't want to say professional, but it looks, it has the shiny effects and... shiny.
It's just the thing where in the UK, like, Doctor Who is like a cultural icon.
Yeah, it's ingrained in our culture. It's still just another TV show.
But it's certainly getting a lot more attention in America, and a lot more people are like, oh yeah, man, I love Doctor Who.
I've gotten like a few compliments on my shirt. She's like, oh, I like Doctor Who. It's nice. But
and if all you've seen of the Doctor is Matt Smith, that is super cool.
That is cool.
Not trying to be like, oh, they haven't seen the old stuff, they aren't cool. Like, I don't care. If you like the show, no one is allowed to tell you how to like a show.
Exactly. I mean, I'm not particularly a huge fan of the show, like, right now as it is.
Yeah.
I prefer how it was before, but that doesn't mean that other people can't love it. It's like, I hate it when people get crap for liking 11. It's like... If you like him, you like him. Like, it's the same character.
The only thing I have a problem with usually is like when someone says something that's just like wrong, like they say like a fact about the show that isn't actually correct or anything like that. Yeah, but like this is, as always, this review is opinionated.
And also we know that Moffat doesn't write all the episodes.
Yeah, we get that. We understand. It's just a catchy title.
Yeah.
So I guess that's all for this week.
Yeah, I'm pretty stoked about next week though, because ghosts. I love ghosts.
Lots of ghosts. But it's okay because it will take like forever to get to the ghosts. And there'll be lots of...
Or you'll be thrown in the middle and get really confused like I did this episode.
Yes, there we go. And the doctor
But
will be
will there be Russians?
But will there be No, because everyone in the world speaks like they're from the UK.
Well, that's the TARDIS translator, because I guess it was there.
They translated to be posh. There we go. All right, so until next week.
Next week.
Alonzi.
Alonzi.
Alanzi.